sometimes you go into college and you think, oh, I want to do this, but it's something completely different down the line. So can you share a little bit about that with us?
Absolutely. First of all, just to kind of to answer your later question, and then I'll get into my background just because I don't want to forget. I've realized along my career and with the people that I've met that a career like journalism doesn't really require you to study journalism, and that whatever you come into college with an idea of studying doesn't need to define the rest of your life. I have known so many brilliant journalists and attorneys and doctors and engineers and artists and architects and entrepreneurs and people who have had who have lived out their definitions of success according to their values, who studied something completely unrelated. So first of all, that pressure that we put on ourselves to kind of follow a certain path according to whatever dictates we've learned about what that requires, you can chill. My career has evolved tremendously, and I've learned to do new things through lost opportunities or failures. And I think what matters is to really be true to your convictions, your values, evaluate constantly where you find purpose, because that could change. And also reevaluate your ideas of, what success looks like to you. I say this because I was just reading a book of a good friend of mine who she sent me the book is not out, but when it's out, I will certainly recommend it to all the networks. And she talked about that, like how you should, at every different stage when your life changes, look back at what your idea of success was and, kind of shift your goals. Because a lot of us will find ourselves just really giving our lives away to pursuing a goal that a long time ago we kind of stopped caring much about, or that is not a priority, or is not what now, given my experiences and what I've learned, is my definition of success. So I think that's really important, especially as women. We do enough to punish ourselves for no reason, really. So we don't need added pressure from ourselves because we told somebody at one point that we were going to go into school for pre-med. So on that note, I told everyone willing to listen my entire life that I was going to be a doctor. My dad is a doctor, and I saw him at work, and I saw how he treated patients and how people loved him and how, he really cared. And obviously the ultimate, definition of success is being responsible for and saving people's lives. So I'm like, well, this is what I'm going to do. And I had a suspicion when I was in high school that I really liked writing, that I had more of a creative mind in fields that had to do with reading and writing and literature and poetry. And although I enjoyed science, I couldn't envision myself spending a lot of time in enclosed spaces like labs, or in, or more, to be more specific, further specializing. And I guess I have to go further back. I was born in Puerto Rico, born and raised in Puerto Rico, in Santurce. I have my Santurce hat somewhere in this car, which sometimes is a bed and sometimes it's a car, and it takes me places. So I have all kinds of stuff here, pillows and blankets and whatnot. Very proud Boricua, born and raised in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I went to the same high school from kindergarten until I graduated. Said until my first day in college, probably, that I was going to study pre-med and be a doctor. And finally had the guts to kind of confront my dad and say, I'm not going to study medicine, but I'm so scared because now I don't know who I am or what I'm going to do. And he was like, oh, I'm the happiest man in the world. I know you could do it, but I didn't know why you were doing it, because you never, that I knew that your talents and your passions and your skills and your curiosities were somewhat different. And I was very grateful that he didn't really push me. And nobody in my family really everybody had high expectations, but nobody really pushed me to pursue a specific career or one career in particular. So I think that, that was great. So it was kind of an easy conversation. And then I didn't know. So I first went to Tufts University. Ended up switching kind of majors, or I hadn't had to declare my major yet, but I decided to do international relations. I was curious about the world. I wanted to learn about, more about global and, global politics and diplomacy, and understand more about how countries relate with each other, and more about politics, which had been a little bit of my upbringing because my family was always obsessed with politics in Puerto Rico. But I knew that I also didn't want to be a politician or really take a side. And, I enjoyed my classes. And one day when I had finally, give me 1 second. I need to not pick up this call. One moment.
That's okay, no worries.
While we wait, if you can, please turn on your cameras.
So, went to college, Tufts. Then my dad called one day and said, "Look, this is too expensive. I can't pay for it. But we can, if you go to the University of Miami, where he had like a really good deal, because he taught at the medical school, or his wife taught at the medical school. You can go there for free." And although I really did not want to move to Miami, because I had spent a large part of my life traveling between Miami and Puerto Rico to visit my dad over the summer and all that, I don't think I had a choice. And I thought, if I'm ever going to incur student debt, I'm probably going to wait for grad school to do that. And to be like brutally honest, I didn't even know, I was overwhelmed by the idea of even looking for financial aid or trying to find funding or, getting a scholarship. So, and more importantly, and this is the part of this story that I actually regret, I had started dating somebody who lived in Puerto Rico. So being Miami, I was going to be closer. Big mistake, like right off the bat. Especially in this phase of your lives, do not make decisions for a significant other. It's like, no, just get out there, meet so many people. I love that this generation is, I love that my generation did not repeat the patterns of my parents' generation, which was get married at 22 and then obviously divorce, because you should never marry at 22. I kind of made that mistake, but I got out of it real quick. But I did really regret, when I was having the time of my life at Tufts, not making the extra effort to stay at the school where I really wanted to stay, where I had my friends, where I was getting smarter, and where I really felt like I was being challenged, and living the college experience, and really just kind of soaking into all that, wisdom and academia, and of course, fun, to move to Miami, where I ended up living like a very grown-up life, because I was dating this older guy, which also don't do. It's totally dumb, totally unnecessary. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play grown-up. And then by the time I was 24, I was like, wait a second, I'm hella young. I'm not gonna continue playing house.
Go back.
Check it. I'm out.
Cancel
That
that.
was fun. Yeah, that was fun. Thanks for participating. And, went on to live really my best life, find independence, like pay my own rent, date a ton of other people, no shame in that, collect engagement rings.
Okay.
No, not collect. I gave the others back, but this is my third.
You made a note which one you liked the most. You were testing your options.
Exactly. Third time's a charm.
Fingers crossed.
and never, I never settled for what didn't feel right. And I'm very proud of that. I often, I have dealt with all kinds of anxieties, shame, imposter syndrome, self harm, self hate, all of these things that thankfully now I can never settle. I can afford to have a therapist weekly who I used to see like whenever, once a month or whenever I felt like I really needed it. And now I'm like, this is maintenance. And it's been great because she's somebody who's so straightforward and empowering and reminds me of like what a badass I've been to get out of relationships that other people might have stayed passive because it wasn't bad, it's not bad, it's not awful, but I was like, no, this is not it. And the same with work, the same with experiences where I felt like I had grown out of the space, not because I was better or worse, but because I felt like there wasn't a whole lot more to learn. And so that same kind of mentality, I feel like, has kept me just pursuing this idea that there's got to be more out there. And at this point in my life, at 37 years old, recently, well, I got married 2 years ago. It's going to be 2 years. I feel at home. I feel like I'm so glad that I have zero FOMO for my personal life, trips made around the world, random jobs to pay for those trips, people I dated, just all kinds of things that people around me, and especially even though Puerto Rico is not the most conservative of cultures, but, as Latinos, we do have those kinds of tendencies to, okay, I'll make my grandmother happy that, oh, I met a man or whatever that expectation is. And so I feel like I don't feel like I had FOMO. And I always had this gut feeling in different jobs and in certain positions, not because of the relevance or the name of the brand or how big that job is, but because I just felt this doesn't click or it doesn't go with my values, that there's something else. Now at CBS, even though I wanted this job so bad a decade ago, now I understand and value, all of this needed to happen for me to develop these skills, to get to know myself, to have the maturity in a way to appreciate opportunities and not demand things because somebody else has it and I want it too, but actually, have that patience and that wisdom and say, and ask myself, why do I want that? Do I want that because I want likes, because I want to be famous, because I want to be loved, because of external validation? Or do I want that because it's going to make my life richer, either because of the nature of the story or because I'm going to be working with people who know better than I, or have more experience than me, and I'm going to learn from them, or because I'm going to travel more and get to expose myself to other cultures, or explore something that makes me nervous, like investigative journalism at the network level, which is a very daunting thought for me, but I know that it's what I ultimately want to do. And with that mentality and that mindset, I've always kind of, I think the most important, let me go back. With that kind of mindset, a lot of life and a lot of success and great opportunities, and not monetary success and not fame success, but success in terms of looking back and saying, shit, I did that. I was great at it. And I'm so much better for it. And I have all these memories. A lot of those things have come because I've kind of had those conversations with myself and thought, this ain't it. Or, ooh, that's scary, but whatever. I'll commit, I'll say yes, and I'll learn. And that, I know one of the questions that we had discussed that I had read that you guys were curious about is a good piece of advice. I had it at the beginning of my career and I had it a few months ago. At the beginning of my career, it was from my grandmother, who was an incredibly prolific, successful, brilliant woman, an artist. She was a comedian, a dancer, an actor, and then became a politician and was the legislator with the most laws passed in Puerto Rico. including the first law against domestic violence in Puerto Rico, which preceded VAWA in the States. And so she told me when I had my first opportunity, she said, I called her. I actually asked my dad. I was like, Dad, they're offering me this job, and I was still finishing school. I am obviously going to finish school, but it seems like a cool opportunity. And he's like, that's ridiculous. Don't do it. You're never going to finish school, but you should call my mom. Like, she understands your field better than I do. He's a doctor. He's like, no, the more you study, the better. And I obviously finished, graduated from University of Miami, but called my grandmother, said, they're offering me a full-time job. It might take me an extra semester to graduate if I do this. She goes, take it. Opportunities are scarce in this field, in television, not in every field. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know if I'm capable. Forget it. There's, forget self-doubt. Just take it, do it. You're going to excel. Whatever you don't know, ask the questions. Just say yes, just lean in. I was like, all right. At first, the job was like an assistant to an executive producer. Immediately, within months, I became the entertainment anchor for the new newscast at the network. And it happened because somebody left the job. And instead of, my job was to find someone to replace her or help my boss find someone. But I said, what if, I could fill in, like completely shaking, shit in my pants, not knowing if I was going to be, at all like capable, right, of doing this job, of going on camera, of asking questions, of doing research. And it was about celebrities. It was not that serious. It's not like I was, uncovering Watergate. It's like celebrity interviews. No, it can't be that hard. So I started doing that, and one opportunity led to the next. And I made myself so essential at filling that position that they ended up giving it to me. Yes. And just like that, there have been so many different moments that I can think about in my career where somebody said, hey, are you around, or you want to do this? Or I always say yes. More successful women than I will tell you, actually, the value is in learning when to say no. That comes later. I feel like if I were a CEO, sure. To me, the value and the excitement and looking back and feeling like I did a job well done is in experience. It's an experience that not just develops a skill, but experience that I cherish and value and think back and like, oh, I remember when I did that to myself, because I talk to myself a lot. Or, actually I know about this because I did that story. And so to me, I lived through the stories. I mean, the reason why I ultimately decided on journalism was because I realized this was a career that would allow me to have as many lives as one can have. Every story is a little bit of life. Every story, you become a little bit of an expert. So the last time I had this same piece of advice, which has to do with imposter syndrome and other things, well, 2 times actually, very recently. One was from Gloria Calderon Kellett, who created One Day at a Time and With Love Now. Actor, producer, actually made history as like the highest, not the highest paid Latina, but I can't remember. It was either the Latina who has the highest like content contract with a streamer. Anyway, she was given like 8 figures to create content for Amazon. I asked her about imposter syndrome, and she goes, ain't nobody got time for that. Like, we just don't.
Oh,
We cannot. Like, she's like, the time you spend doubting yourself is time that the patriarchy will strengthen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, nope, no time. When you hear that voice, just say, I'm not doing it for me. It's not about me. It's about the women who came before. It's the women whose shoulders I stand on. Right?
yes.
Mm-hmm. And the last person who told me another great piece of advice that's very much along those lines was Jimmy Chin, who directed Free Solo and The Rescue and is one of the most accomplished mountaineers out there. Total superhero of a human being. And it was more about climbing as a metaphor. And he says, you just commit and then you figure it out. And so to me, that really reflected, oh, of course, because that's what I do. it's not that I don't ask myself, oh, am I good enough? Am I not? Am I going to mess it up? Am I going to mess it up? Or can I do this? Do I know enough? It's just commit, and then you figure it out. You say yes, and then you prepare. And then, I know that the difference between insecurity and confidence, at least in what I do, or, where I am and confidence, especially working in front of a camera and having to deliver under pressure, under deadline, whatever, is research, is the more I know. And sometimes I'll have months for research, in which case I'll probably leave it to the 2 weeks before the deadline. And and sometimes I have weeks, and sometimes I have days, and sometimes I have minutes. And the secret is asking questions and really understanding, what's your method of learning? I know that, for instance, which is very ironic, and I feel like I recently discovered this about myself. I do not learn watching stories on video. I learn reading, and I learn mostly through audio. I think that what engages both audio and visual becomes distracting, and I don't capture as well what just happened. When I read, I don't always have the time to read a whole lot. So the next best thing, actually, no, the number one best thing is asking questions and having someone tell me the story. So I'll often ask an expert or a staffer or someone, okay, I'm going to ask all of these questions, and, shame on you if you think they're dumb questions, because there's no such thing as a dumb question. And you explain it to me, and then keep asking more basic questions, and never fear sounding dumb, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to think I'm dumb when the story comes out.
Exactly.
Like, I just felt like that. I was at we're doing this story about water rights, and I read so much last night. I still have no idea, because it's so much engineering and just really intricate stuff. And so I asked all of these questions, and by this point I don't care, but I'm still like, oh my God. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm not an engineer. I'm not a hydrologist or whatever you call it. So I'm just asking and asking and asking. And then I did the interview. And at the end of the interview, the woman was like, your questions, thank you so much for all that insight. You just knew so much. And I was like, this morning I knew nothing. But on the way there, talking to other experts, doing that whole hike and asking the engineers and all that, I really informed myself. And I think that's applicable to whatever career. Not the last thing, because we can talk further. The other thing that I think is very valuable that I've learned is, what was it? I just lost it. I was talking about confidence, building confidence, the value of research. Yes. I've learned, and this is kind of a recent one, it's not working. And it sounds very cliche, because I'm sure you've heard it before, but I kind of felt it in my body, that what I'm working towards is not perfection, it's confidence. Like, now that I'm anchoring on Tuesdays at 7 p.m., you can watch me for free, cbsnews.com or on the app. I'm anchoring the streaming network newscast at 7 on Tuesdays, once a week. Super exciting, new challenge. I had not anchored since I did entertainment back in the day, Univision, in Spanish, which is my native language. And I realized that all I need to do, obviously practice and, read the lines before, and just do the research. And if I stutter, whatever, everybody stutters, Nora O'Donnell, Gayle King, Oprah, like whoever, they all stutter, like anybody stutters, it's human. But if I'm working towards perfection, the moment I stuttered, I lost everything. The moment I stuttered, I just want to cry and run out the door and never come back and hide under a rock. And I realized, looking back at my career and why I used to get so anxious when I first started and things like that, is because I'm trying to be perfect. Like, I have to, I'm thinking about the story, what I have to say, memorize, or if it's on prompter, read it perfectly, the intonation, all these things. And I realized more and more, especially now that I'm doing this anchoring thing, it's like, all I need is to know all the stories that are going to air and have enough background to comfortably have a conversation about it, ask the questions, know that what I'm writing and what I'm reading is going to make sense. And that is, zero consciousness of perfection. Like there's no such thing. It's a waste of time. But more importantly, it takes you away. It actually makes you more anxious. It takes you away, and it wastes your time that you could be devoting towards confidence. And confidence is the thing that is rewarded. Confidence is the thing that bridges the pay gap. Confidence is the thing that says, that's my story. I covered it. I'm going to, I have all these resources. Or, no, I've never been to El Salvador, but look, it's my first language and I know plenty of people and I could do the research and I have these. Or no, I've never, surfed, but whatever. I can learn and try it. And then I have surfed though. Whatever it is in life that you have to put yourself up for, asking for a raise, asking for a promotion, applying for a job, killing it at a job interview, giving a talk in public, whatever it is, it's confidence. And the only way to have confidence is to build it. You can't have empty confidence. That's just cockiness. And that can only take you till 25, because something happens to women. And I've had this conversation with most of my friends. At 25, your confidence peaks. After that, because society is so awful and cruel, and especially hitting 30, you start just losing your shit. You're like, I don't know anything. I forgot everything. I'm completely worthless. Nobody wants me. My only, asset in the world was youth and beauty, and now I'm fucked. That, you know what I mean? Like that happens to everybody at 30. And pardon the language, but you're all grown up. So I wouldn't talk this way to high school students. It really, that part, the confidence part, is something that you build, is not external. And that's what happens at 25, it peaks because the whole world is telling you, your youth is everything. Your youth, you have all the time in the world. Oh, you're so young and so good at this. Oh my God, you have an old soul. Like, especially men trying to sleep with you will tell you all kinds of things to build your confidence, but it comes from outside. So best advice I wish I had earlier in my life is there's no substitute for effort, for research, for taking the time to learn about the thing that you're interested in or that you're going to work at. Sports will obviously do that. I didn't play enough sports growing up, so it took me a while to learn those lessons. But yeah, I think it's like it has to be solid, and then from there it snowballs, not external. I don't know. I went on a monologue, but
we appreciated all of that. That was great.
I took notes.
Good.
Taking notes. I think a lot of us definitely needed to hear a lot of what you were saying. And you sound like you've had an amazingly full life, only at 37, which is incredible. So excited.
I love that only. Thanks.
It's true.
Only is good.
But I'm excited to hear what you have to do for the rest of your life and what you will continue to accomplish. And I know that you said with experience, that's how you learn and that's how you grew with success. But was there one instant that you really felt like, wow, I did this, or this is really going to set me up for success today?
I would say that's something you do every day. And it's funny, I was just talking to my best friend during the drive, and she's like 39, 38, 39, and just grown ass women. And we're still struggling with, okay, how do I create habits, value those habits because they're going to put me in the right mindset and headspace to not only create, but create confidently, to be open to new ideas, to not take things personal, to all those things that you need to do to be in the right kind of mind space, to just kind of flow without punishing myself when I don't follow those rituals. For me, it's waking up, I'll make mate or I'll make tea, is forgiving myself for having slept in when I needed the rest. And I didn't have a deadline or a thing for which I had to wake up early. Because I still do that. I still wake up and say it's like 8 a.m. and I'm like, oh, especially in the West Coast, oh, the world is going, news is happening, I'm so late. And then, I didn't have time to meditate. I didn't have time to work out. And now I just punish myself for the rest of the day. And the whole day just goes into, same thing would happen to me in college when it was, deadlines or exams or having to study. And I had 300 pages to read, and I'm a massive procrastinator. But the reason why I would procrastinate is because of the anxiety, because you just keep not wanting to face it, until then it's upon you. So I think, the jobs that I felt that I did right in them, like I did that, I still have to get better at validating it through the process, at telling myself that while I'm in the journey. Because I, of course, there have been, my documentary about Puerto Rico that I did for ABC 10 first, and the one that I did about Puerto Rico for CBS News, the first one was Puerto Rico Rises, the second, Fighting for Paradise, were really just painful work. Emotionally, because I'm telling a story that is part of my DNA. Also in terms of my nervous system and anxiety, because I don't want to get it wrong, because if I get something wrong or if I seem biased, I'm going to be attacked by all sides, because everybody's extremely passionate about the politics there. And more importantly, I just didn't want to fail my people, my identity is so attached. So I didn't want it to be a missed opportunity. So in the process, it's so painful, and there's very little space that I leave for that. It's okay. Even if you have to push the deadline, you're doing it for the right reason. You're not pushing the deadline because you went clubbing, which in your case, 100% do. Please live. My age, I did all my clubbing. Maybe I have a few nights left. But I'm pushing the deadline because it's going to make it better. And like self-love and forgiving myself for understanding that I'm not going to be equally creative at every time of the day. Not every time of the day is going to be full of, inspiration. That the first take or the first draft is never going to be good. And stop like just punishing myself and others for that first draft not being great. But you gotta layer, polish, edit, and have that confidence that I'm not going to put something out there that's not going to be the best that I can, given the time and resources. Because the anxiety of it all and the punishing and all that actually does take from the quality, I believe, and I think it's very important, especially, with the amount of pressures that you guys have in college, it's so important to learn your times, give yourself time and learn when certain things work. For instance, I like writing pitches for stories when everybody's gone to bed, because I'm not going to be distracted, not going to be answering emails, I'm not going to be dealing with, my husband coming in and telling me things, I'm not going to be texting or Instagramming or whatever. First thing in the morning, some days I wake up inspired, but other days it takes me a little bit. So that's a good time for me to quiet the mental chatter and those voices by meditating first and foremost. And then I move on to working out, because I know that's going to make me happier and more confident and get rid of, the anxious thinking for the next tasks. I'm not going to have the time to do that, but both of those things every day, and then be like, that's okay. That's not a failure. That just means I have to prioritize something today. So, the jobs well done, the things that I'm very proud of are the things where I know that I put a lot of effort in and that I put my heart into it. A lot of, my border coverage stories, I can't say that I don't have like a quantifiable list of ways that I've changed people's lives or, got somebody who was wrongfully convicted out of prison. Like, I have a list of those things. But I know that when I put my heart into stories, like I'm not at that level where I've done that. But I know that I can tell the stories of voices that are often not heard. And I know that I'm here for a reason, and that I'm not here to fit in. And that's a constant reminder for me being at a big network. I'm not here to fit in. I'm not here to quiet my passions, to quiet my affinity to certain stories and certain groups that are underrepresented. I'm here to fight for that. And sometimes people aren't going to like it, but they're going to respect it. Sometimes we were going to be like, you know, well, yeah. I mean, I've had recently, I can't remember what it was that a producer said to me that was like, something like, you know, as if I was accusing them of being a racist or something. I was like, I think that was your mind telling you that, because I said nothing of the sort. I literally was just expressing the need to cover the story in this particular way. So, you know, the things that I'm not very proud of and that you won't see me promote, and this is fine, it's part of the job, are the stories that I don't want to take credit for because it wasn't a whole lot of my work. And that happens, you know, in the position that I am, there's a lot of stories that, like, I get assigned to a lot of stories, and some are great, I'm very proud of, and I dedicate as much as I can. But, you know, it was like a lot of heavy lifting from the producer, or somebody else pitched it. And, you know, and there's a weird thing that's like, it's almost like, I don't know, the difference between your child and your godchild or a nephew. You know what I mean? Like, it's the things that I'm the most proud of, not because it was my idea, but because I actually gave it my all. And, you know, I try to do a little bit of that every day. Not everything I do can be that, and that's okay. As long as I'm not allowing for something that I don't believe is true to make air, like, you know, giving one side a louder voice just because they have more power, kind of thing. That I won't do. Now I think I'm in like subjective territory, but I'm assuming a lot of you might go into journalism, or some of you might be interested in journalism. So I'm kind of speaking to the themes that are common in what I do.
I think you're actually talking to, at least for me, I'm biochem. And I think a lot of the things that you've talked about actually fit into me, especially when you talk about med schools. Like, is that something that I want to do? Turned out, no, I don't want to do med school, maybe PA, but definitely not med school. That's not for me. And I'm taking a lot of what your conversation just went out. Learn and give yourself time. I struggle a little bit with giving myself time. Confidence. If I stutter, there you go. I get nervous and I'm like, okay, I suck. Oh my God, take it back. And I'm taking this as, it's okay. You make mistakes. That's fine. Learn from it. Move on from it. Ask questions. I don't like to ask questions, but that's the only way to learn, if you ask questions. But the biggest
I have one more.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Before you say that, because it has to do with confidence. God, it's been such a long day now. I'm trying to think what it was. What was the thing you said before? Ask questions.
To have confidence, and it's okay to make mistakes. The only way to learn is to ask the questions.
Now, before that, the thing about stuttering, and it'll come to me. If you go on, it's something that I feel like I have talked about before that I think was really important.
That's okay.
But I'll wait. Continue what you were.
That's okay.
Maybe go back a couple. If you go back a couple of the things that you just said, if you have them in your notes.
Yeah, of course. Learn and give yourself time. Confidence is the bridge to the pay gap. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay if you stutter. Pick yourself back up. It's fine. I think.
Oh yes. Okay. Now I know. That's the one that triggered it. Okay. When you get an opportunity, and this is something that I was talking about, you know, when opportunities come your way, don't underestimate the people extending that opportunity to you. One of the most important things that I have learned along my career, and this has a lot to do with imposter syndrome, is that people will see your potential before you do. And you have to be thankful and trust them. And some of the people who I love, you know, who I've worked with, who've extended big opportunities my way, one of the most satisfying and fulfilling experiences is to look back and say, oh, they were right. I was capable. People will see your potential before you. And especially when you go into a job or into a class or into, you know, a career, you have to give credit to not to everybody, because, whatever. But there are people who will give you an opportunity because they see something in you. And you know what? It's probably easier to just believe them. Just go with it. to say, you know what, they saw my potential. All right, I'm going to go with that. And 100% of the time, you're going to prove them right. You're going to be like, they were right. I actually am capable of doing this. Not to mean that you have to do the thing that maybe you're not interested in, or you don't, or is not fulfilling, because of course, we have many kinds of potential. Like, I was great at entertainment. I was great at hosting entertainment shows. It was great. Somebody saw my potential. I initially didn't believe in it. Then I excelled. It wasn't fulfilling for me. So I left that. But when you have that kind of self-doubt, or if you do, it's good to say, actually, those people might know what they're talking about if they gave me this opportunity.
I completely agree with you. Actually, when you just said that, that others will see the potential in you before you do. I read this quote a long time ago. You just reminded me of it. It said, "You're so used to your features, you don't know how beautiful you look to a stranger." And it's the same thing. You're so used to your skills that you have, you don't know the actual potential you have until somebody else points it out to you. And we tend to question ourselves, and that's what I'm working on. Don't question myself. If somebody's telling me you're good at this, give it a go, try it out. So biggest lesson I'm also taking out from our conversation is to live. I forget that I'm 25 and I need to live too, and I need to do what makes me happy. So thank you so much for everything that you taught us right now. I definitely took a lot of notes, and I am definitely applying to my life. I would love to take this opportunity to give our audience an opportunity to ask you any questions that, they might still have, if you will, or any comment that you guys would love to unmute yourselves or ask them in the chat. Please go ahead.
Okay, we have one question from Gabby. She's asking, what are the most important skills you think the news industry is demanding right now? If you were in college right now and knew what you knew, what would you work on?
Oh, you're muted.
That's weird.
There you are.
Okay, but did I disappear? I think I think one of the things, and this doesn't ring true for everybody, but I would not have majored in broadcast journalism. Most of the skills I learned, at least when I was at the University of Miami, studying broadcast journalism, are things that I learned within a few weeks of my internship. I think one of the best things that I did was to intern. And back then we didn't have paid internships, so it's good that finally the world is like, oh yeah, you shouldn't have people working for free. But internships are very important. Obviously networking is important, and not networking like, here's my business card, what's your LinkedIn? Networking like being almost embarrassingly curious. I mean, reaching out to whoever and whomever and asking for mentorship and saying, oh, I'm going to, shadow you for a day. Doing that kind of thing, I think served me very well. Specifically, the question about what the news media requires, I mean, gosh, it's endless. I think, obviously, this is a cliche, but it's true. Storytelling, writing is very important. I wish I had spent more of my career writing creatively. So it's something that I still work on quite a bit, and just taking the time to sit with the script and think of a character and really plan out, like, not just the information, but the effect that this story will have, almost like it's a film script, even if it's 2 minutes long. But I think in terms of preparing yourself, reading, curiosity, going out into the world and asking questions, and everything that has to do with skills. Like, I taught myself how to edit. I learned in school how to edit linearly. And the reason why I say don't study broadcast journalism is because by the time you get to the work, the technology will have changed so much that it might even be obsolete. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that, like, in other fields, this is true. But I think the core, like the foundation in engineering or in math or in whatever, is going to be that you need to have. In broadcast journalism, I have gained more by breaking patterns than following what I learned in school of how a story is told. Like that part to me is like, ah, as Larry David would say, yes. When you have professors telling you, well, this is how you write a story. This is how every story must start. And I think storytelling has to be emotional and effective. And so I think I'm constantly training. Like I will sit down and watch like 60 minutes and think about what did that story do to me while I was watching it, and why is it so effective, and what did they do, and how did they ask that question. So really kind of through observation and self-training and also mentorship, I think you get further than, at least in my field, journalism for sure, but broadcast journalism,
That's
or at
really
least double major.
I'm sorry.
Or at least double major, like acquire other skills. There's political science or science. And my favorite class in school was evolution. I mean, use your time in college while you have to be there to just, live for sure as much as you can, but your 20s will give you that too. Learn, just really take advantage of having the privilege of, being there to learn, and just sign up for so many classes and lectures, and and sit in lectures, and just indulge in that, because after school it's hard to, when you have so many demands, it's hard to take the time for yourself to do that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for
Other
sharing.
question?
That's super interesting that you said that, because I actually started off with broadcast journalism and I switched after taking my first couple courses.
Because I get so canceled if y'all publish this by every broadcast journalist in the country.
But I am taking communication as my major, and I'm planning on graduating in May. So it's good to hear that even if that is something that I do want to pursue, it's still possible with experience, obviously with any experience. But
and what I'm saying is not, you're not, what I'm saying is not that broadcast journalism doesn't prepare you. For sure it prepares you, but the money and the time and the resources that go into going to college, I would try to learn other things. Use the time to learn things that you're not going to learn in your first internship. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, maybe I'm sure there's I know people who went to excellent broadcast journalism schools. Mine was a little bit experimental at the time, so it kind of felt like a bunch of electives, and
yeah. Well, I'm sure it's subjective, but we appreciate you sharing your experience. I'm definitely going to take it to heart.
Don't tell the professors.
We have one more question before we do let you go. We're cutting a little short here, but Sarah's asking, how have you learned to advocate for yourself, your value, and your time?
Well, that's tough. The first person, man, this is so tough. But I'm so glad that you guys are part of a generation that understands the value of sisterhood and the sorority, and really having a friend or several or a group and colleagues, and really building those female relationships that when you're down and when you're doubting, will come back and say, girl, you're making that up. Like, just who says who? Show me the facts. That just, it happened to me with a producer yesterday who I adore. And it's funny, I'm saying this and I get emotional because I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad that I have these women in my life. And we haven't been working together for too long, but I was like, I closed her door and I was like, I just feel like, I'm trying to get out of this feeling, but I feel like I'm not doing enough. And like, I don't know what to do. And like, my pitches aren't working, or like, they're not, and she's like, what are the facts? She was like, in other words, she's like, because from what you've told me, you're working on this and this and this and that. And like, you actually don't have enough time to be pitching more stories because you're already working on stories. Mm-hmm. Or she's like, or I was like, well, last year I was covering a lot of breaking news. And she said, well, maybe this year is a good time to dedicate to long form, which is where you come from, a strength that most reporters at this level of their careers coming into the network don't have, because they've been doing breaking news. So what if maybe, yourself and the network are developing a longer form thing, which is ultimately what you want to do in the end. So yes, you do breaking news and you'll do breaking news, but where does this urge come from? Because FOMO, or because they're mental chatter. And it's funny because, still I deal with those things. And it's so important to have someone kind of coming back to you and telling, having friends who understand what your weaknesses or anxieties are, and elevating and reminding you of who you are and what you've lived. And it doesn't, and who you are and your value has nothing to do with a list of accomplishments. It's really core. It's just, I'm a good human being who's not, backstabbing others, who can sleep at night knowing that I'm giving it my best and my all today. And if tomorrow I don't give it my best, it's probably because I was tired and I needed to take a nap. And friends will do that. They listen. We don't do it for ourselves. Fortunately, having friends will do that. Finding those people who have that kind of sensibility to say, self-care, or it's, or maybe today is not the day. In terms of advocating at work, I think there is some value to the idea of fake it till you make it in terms of imposter syndrome. Fake it till you make it with imposter syndrome. It's a weird dynamic that those two have. But, putting yourself out there for opportunities, raising your hand, even if you don't feel that you're 100% prepared for it. And if you do feel you're 100% prepared for it, and they're not extending that opportunity, I think the definition of self-respect is asking, so that you don't allow yourself to tell yourself all the reasons why your head will tell you that you didn't get that position. And so you also put people on the spot to actually have to tell you, why is it that I didn't get that opportunity? And not in a way of complaining or, this or that, but in a way of, I want, and this is interesting because I was just talking to somebody so outrageously powerful, and telling them this kind of advice where they felt like they were being put down by somebody even more powerful. And I was like, don't go in whining, don't go in, nobody reacts to that. You can ask, I want to know, I'm setting goals. I'm establishing goals for myself. This is what I want. I want to know how to get there. I want to reverse engineer my success given this thing that I want. How do I get there? Tell me what it takes. And whether that's the person who's responsible for giving you that opportunity, or somebody who can mentor you into that opportunity, it awakens them. People don't think the way we think. They're not focused. And that's another great piece of advice, is knowing that everybody's busy with their own lives. Nobody cares as much as you care about, you really, but not in a nihilistic way, just more like when we take things personal and we think, oh, it's because they don't like me, or, oh, because I did this or I did that. For the most part, people are not, they're thinking about themselves. Most people are partially narcissistic and very selfish. So that's important too, to not, flood yourself with ideas of why I didn't get there. But I think the best way to advocate for yourself is, as I said at the beginning, building your confidence, reaching out and snatching opportunities, even if they're not presented to you, asking for them. And when they don't come, understanding. I had a very painful experience once where I did this excellent audition at this small emerging new network. And everybody told me I killed it. Everybody was like, you killed it. This is so yours. Girl, this is your show. And I didn't get it. And I was so full of assumptions and things that I could not deal with it. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to ask. And I reached out to somebody who worked at that network, who I knew, who had been my mentor years before. And I asked him what happened. And you know what he said? Mm-hmm. He literally said, because it was a panel sort of show, he's like, you are are not good for that because you should be carrying your own show. I don't know if he told me that because he was trying to be nice, but instead of being in a panel, you kind of absorb the air in the whole room. Later on, I realized like, well, I probably should have let other people talk a little more, but I was trying to show off because it was an audition. So I was thinking, I'm not good enough. I'm talking this and that and that. He told me two things. One had to do with like my name and a big journalistic like fallout that I had. So it was, they didn't hire me at all because of my branding, and that could be for another talk. But the main reason, he said, it's because, you know, you were too much, and you should be too much. You shouldn't be less. But for this show, they're looking for something different, something, you know, more like balanced, and you were kind of imbalancing, but in a good way. That is a great trait for you to have your own show. And so it was so helpful for me to reach out, because otherwise I was flooded with thoughts of why I didn't, you know, why I wasn't good enough, why I didn't get it. So yeah, I mean, pick up the phone and ask, how does one get here? Or, you know, in person or email or text or Instagram.
Anyway.
Any other questions?
Did anybody else want to ask anything else before we let Lilia go?
Or share comments or whatever.
I just wanted to say really quickly, thank you so much for speaking today. I'm like in the middle of applying to transfer and like figuring out my own thing with everything, and like everything you have said from the very beginning has been hitting very, very hard and very deep with me. So I just wanted to extend a very, very deep gratitude.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. To me, I mean, the first time I spoke with a group of Women's Network, I just felt this kind of connection. You know, I feel like, what's the point of having lived the life that I've lived? I don't have kids, or not yet. I have nieces. If I'm not passing on what I've learned, and I'm not going to wait to like write some book and, you know, wait another 20 years when I'm not as busy to tell the stories or share this. So to me, this is a huge priority. My email is Lilia Luciano at Gmail. Instagram, Lilia Luciano at Gmail. No, Lilia Luciano. So I always, actually my work email is lucianol@cbsnews.com. I probably check that a lot more, but I'm super active on Instagram too. And, you know, just reach out. If you guys have any questions, I'm 100% there. To me, this is a huge priority, more so than a lot of other parts of life. I think it fills me with joy and, you know, gratitude and excitement to have these conversations as much as possible. And it really kind of reminds me of what I've learned along the way too.
That also
so
makes
great to meet you
all of us incredibly happy. I'm blushing. I'm so happy. But there's a couple comments here from the ladies. They're all thanking you. Very inspiring. No one has ever spoken to me as you have. Can't thank you enough.
Oh.
So I think I speak for all of us where we thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your experiences. I mean, I know I am going to definitely take these and apply them into my future. And I hope these ladies can as well.
Please do. And reach out, seriously.
Yes.
I don't know how I can see the comments after we hang up. Do you guys know that? Because I want to see the comments. I just, since I'm in the little phone, I can't.
Yes, I can. I'm going to go
up.
ahead and stay back, and I can go ahead and screenshot all of them and send them to you. Email.
Super appreciate that. And again, Lilia Luciano at Gmail, Luciano L at CBS News, and every other social media platform. I respond too much. So thank you all.
Thank you from Desi and I a little bit more from our Spanish culture. Te agradecemos de todo corazón que te hayas tomado el tiempo para poder hablar con nosotras. Ha sido un placer, un grandísimo orgullo. Y te deseamos muchísima suerte en todos los proyectos que tienes en puerta y estaremos al pendiente y ojalá puedas volver a hablar con nosotros. Muchísimas gracias.
Seguro. La próxima vez en persona. I'm just up the street.
Por supuesto que sí. Yes,
Nos
absolutely.
bañamos
Yes.
entonces.
Thank you.
Muchísimas
Awesome.
gracias,
Bueno,
Lilia.
thank you all.
Que
Take
tenga
care.
buena noche.
Gracias a
Gracias.
ustedes.
Pues, buenas noches. Good night,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you for
Thank you,
joining
everybody,
us.
for
Thank
coming.
you.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Oh, wait, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second.
You got